I've said it for a while now that if Bitcoin gets to a certain level, then the bull market resumes. And if it doesn't get to that level, then it's pretty much the end of the bull market. Well, look, now we're at that level. If you look at the charts over here, what you can see is that Bitcoin is now at this level over here, which is the 115,289. And I said the following: if we can go above this level over here, which is the 116 level, then we can say pretty much that the bull market continues. If not, we have to be ready for the end of the bull market. Now we're at that level, and there's a decision that needs to be taken by the market. And if a few things happen in the next 2, 3 or 4 days, then the bull market continues in full force. And if a few things don't happen, then maybe we have to accept the fact that we are heading towards the end of the bull market. So I'm going to show you what's going to happen. I'm going to show you what needs to happen. I'm going to show you which direction I think this is going to be going. I think it's going to be a big show at the start of what is a very big week for crypto. So let's get going, guys. All right, wakey, rise and shine. Big week, big week in crypto. Someone says, I love this background. You know why you love this background? It's not a background. It's actually a real studio. See, there's no green screen behind me. It's an actual studio. This is the new Banter studio. We've just moved into an office, and I'm going to be broadcasting from here, bringing you crypto love and crypto wisdom. Guys, if you want to send us shit to put at the back here, then we'll give you guys an address. You can actually send it to us, and we can actually put your stuff at the back here and make it look very interesting. Anyway, a big show today, because I think today we decide whether the bull market continues or doesn't continue. You guys will remember that 𝗬𝗃, who's one of us, tweeted and he said, look, it's the end of the bull market. And I said, look, there is a 30% chance that we are at the end of the bull market, because what you got to remember is when the bull market ends, there's no like announcement or sign that says, okay guys, the bull market's ended. What basically happens is you get a pattern that looks something like this, right? You get a pattern that basically goes, down and then slightly up and then down and then slightly up and then bang, or you go all the way down. Now that could be playing out right in front of our eyes, and I think today we're at a very important inflection point. Either we break up above this level over here, which technically, if you count wicks, technically we've broken above that. If we close up above this level over here today, then you can say, look, there's been a higher low put in over here, and now there's a higher high, and that gives us back into a bullish pattern. If not, however, then you got to be, if we get rejected here, you got to be open to the fact that maybe the end of the bull market's here, and it's a very big week for the bull market today. In fact, one of the biggest weeks of the bull market today. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Also, I'm going to be talking about some altcoins. I want to talk a little bit about Zcash. I want to talk about a whole lot of different AI agents. So we've got a lot to talk about today. What I need you guys to do, I need you guys to subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. If you are subscribed, guys, help me with this algorithm. You can see the algorithm is penalizing us big time today. I need you guys to help me. All you do is you smash the like button. That's all you need to do. You just need to smash the like button. Someone says they agree with 𝗬𝗃's thesis that the bull market's over. I don't think the bull market's over yet. I'm going to show you in a couple of seconds. But before we get there, let's talk about this weekend. So we had a weekend pump, right? And you know that we're not supposed to have a weekend pump, or we're not supposed to trust a weekend pump. But actually, this weekend pump, I actually trusted. And the reason why I actually trusted it is because this weekend pump was actually based on certain things that actually happened over the weekend. It was kicked off with this from Scott Bessent over the weekend. And that's why when I saw it, I was like, this is one of those weekend pumps that is actually going to continue.
A very good 2-day meeting. I would believe that so it would be an extra 100% from where we are now. And I believe that is effectively off the table. I'm not going to get ahead of the two leaders who will be meeting in Korea on Thursday, but I can tell you we had a very good 2 days. So I would expect that the threat of the 100% has gone away, as has the threat of the immediate imposition of the Chinese.
So they are loosening their stance on the China trade deal, and that's on the week where Trump is actually going to meet with President Xi. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what actually caused this. So we had that announcement, then we had Bitcoin actually pump, and then when we had the pump over here, we got to quite a big weekly close on Bitcoin. If you look at the monthly candle in Bitcoin, and even if you look at the weekly candle in Bitcoin, so you can actually see it over here. Let me get you guys some bull market. Okay, I see it's still loading up our bull market support bands. But the important thing is that we closed above the bull market support band. So that's the bull market support bands. We closed above the bull market support bands on the weekly. It seems like we're going to close above the bull market support bands on the monthly as well. So if you look at the monthly candle, right now the monthly candle is on the bull market support band. But I want to spend a little bit of time on this monthly candle in a second. So on the weekly, we also closed above the short-term holders cost at the moment, right? So there's a cost base for the short-term Bitcoin holders, and we closed above the short-term cost base, which usually signals a bit of a recovery or a little bit of a relief in the market. And so it feels like if we carry on like this, and remember, it's the 27th, 28th. How many days in October? 30 or 31? 31. 31. So there's still 4 days left in October. And these 4 days are pivotal to decide whether we're going to close October in the red or in the green, whether we're going to have an Uptober or a Downtober, right? So if we're going to have, right now Bitcoin is 1.29% up for October. And if you look at the monthly candle, I want to spend some time actually talking about this monthly candle. So look at this monthly candle. It went all the way up. It went all the way down. If you look at the move of the monthly candle, the move of the monthly candle is about 25%. So if you take it from the bottom over here and you take the monthly candle all the way up to top, you're talking about a 23% move in the monthly candle. But also what you'll notice is that this candle opened and right now looks like it's going to close very, very, very much at the same level. And you can see that there's a big move to the downside, almost equal, and a big move to the upside, almost equal. So what is this candle? So this candle is actually called a doji candle, right? It's not a great candle. It's not a great candle. So I asked ChatGPT to look at this candle. So I said, what's this candle called? It's called a long leg doji candle. The opening and closes are almost identical, forming a very small real body. The upper and lower shadows are very long, showing that price moved strongly in both directions. Now, when price moves strongly in both directions, I love this because it said this candle destroyed portfolios, dreams for ambitions and hope, first for the bulls and now for the bears. Because first the bulls were destroyed in the beginning of the month and we smashed down, and now for the bears. So what does this candle actually mean? It indicates indecision between the buyers and the sellers. It could indicate, in an uptrend, it could indicate a possible bearish reversal signal, right? Now, we don't want that possible bearish reversal signal, because if you have a possible bearish reversal signal in a bull market, that's not very good. And we have been in an uptrend up until now. So we have until the end of October to fix this situation that we're in. And it's all very scary because if you look at the 4-year halving cycle, then you know that according to the 4-year cycle, we're pretty much at the end of the bull market. Now the question is whether we get an extended cycle or whether we don't get an extended cycle. That's pretty much all that's up for grabs here. If we get an extended cycle, which by the way I think is what's going to happen, then I'm going to get Ben Cowan on our show on Friday to come and talk about the extended cycle because I think he's got a lot to say. So that is what we have to look out for. It can go either way if you look at this monthly candle. We've got to make sure that we close this monthly candle so it doesn't close like a doji candle. If it does close like a doji candle, then the risk is much more towards us. Then it becomes a whole lot more important that we actually break that level that we currently seem to be rejecting, which is this 115, 116,000. We need one more move up to actually smash this candle. So what is that move that we're actually looking for? Well, we have a big week this week. And if we are going to get that move, it's going to happen in this week. And it's a massive, massive, massive week for Bitcoin this week, right? I'll show you what's actually happening. So the first thing that's actually happening for Bitcoin, and actually not even for Bitcoin, for markets this week, is we have the Fed interest rate decision, right? So massive Fed interest rate decision. That's coming out on Wednesday. There's the FOMC meeting. And on Wednesday, we will be live right here, bringing you the FOMC decision. We also have a big earnings week. And the earnings might be important this week because if we have good earnings, it shows that the economy is still hot. Now, I don't know if we want a hot economy or not a hot economy, because if we have a hot economy, then Powell's going to be reluctant to reduce rates. If we don't have a hot economy, then the market's going to think that we're going into recession. So I don't really know what the market wants, and we'll see what happens when those earnings come out. Then, on top of that, we have President Trump meeting President Xi on Thursday. So let's dig into each one of these that are happening. The first big event this week is the FOMC this week. I think when it comes to FOMC, we all know that it's going to be a interest rate cut, and it looks like it's a 25 bips interest rate cut. I don't think we're going to get a double cut, because remember that no data has been coming out, right? Like no data has come out at all. No data has come out at all because of the government shutdown. So it'd be very strange for Powell to all of a sudden reduce by a lot when there's been a government shutdown. So that's not going to happen this week. So we're definitely going to get a rate cut this week, a 25 basis point rate cut. Remember, we then still have one more meeting on the 10th of December, and here they're also forecasting for one more rate cut. So 2 more rate cuts this year. I think that's pretty much an obvious, right? So then after that, or during this FOMC meeting, we're not only listening about the rate cut, because that's pretty much on the table. We need to also listen to what Powell says about quantitative easing versus quantitative tightening. Remember that he came out quite a while back and he said that it may be the era, it may be approaching the end of our balance sheet contraction. In other words, that QT, quantitative tightening, will be ending soon, which means that the government will stop taking money out of the economy. That era is going to be ending soon. So you can see that he said it a while back. He said, it was at one of his talks. He says Powell also signaled that the central bank may stop shrinking its balance sheet in a couple of months, an important shift necessary to preserve liquidity in overnight funding markets. So that could be good for the markets. We need to listen closely to what Powell says about quantitative tightening. I don't think that Powell can say very many other things, because the problem is that they've got no data. The government's on a shutdown, and he may start talking about the fact that the government shutdown is really now disrupting the Fed and a whole lot of other things. And that's something that we should actually be listening to. Remember that the end of quantitative tightening doesn't mean quantitative easing. It will feel like quantitative easing, because it's almost like if you're swimming in a swimming pool and someone is sucking the water out of the swimming pool. Then when they stop sucking the water out of the swimming pool, it almost feels like the pool remains fuller, right? That's exactly what the Fed's doing. But then the difference is, the thing is that there's still always a pause between that and actual quantitative easing. Now, I don't think we're going to get quantitative easing for a long time, and at least until rates go near zero, right? So I think for now, the pause in quantitative tightening will start feeling like we're getting quantitative easing, and that we're getting much more money into the economy. I think also the one thing that we've got going on here is we had a slightly better than expected inflation reading on Friday. It was 3 instead of 3.1%, so slightly better. But guys, inflation is still at 3%. It's like, we are cutting into, I just want to give you guys some context here, which is, it actually baffles my mind. So remember that the Fed needs to use interest rates as a tool to stimulate the economy and to loosen the economy when the economy needs stimulation and the economy needs to be loosened. Now, I want to just give you like the setup under which the Fed is starting to cut interest rates. The first thing is that the Fed's cutting interest rates when interest rates are at when inflation is at 3%. Their target's 2%. Sounds weird, right? Like, why are you cutting inflation? Why are you cutting interest rates when your inflation is still above your target? The second thing is you're cutting interest rates when markets are at all-time high. I mean, just look at the S&P 500, or if you look at the Russell 2000, it's IWM, here it is. Look at the Russell 2000, which is the low cap, the low cap stocks, right? Look at the Russell 2000. The Russell 2000 is also at all-time highs now. I think it's all-time highs. It is all-time highs. Just go into a monthly to make sure it hasn't been higher before. So you've got the economy, the stock market's absolutely running. So it's a very, very weird background to be cutting interest rates on. You're cutting interest rates in an environment where markets are at all-time highs, where inflation is above your target. And then the crazy thing that I'm seeing is that markets at all-time highs, and there's interest rates coming, and the stock markets are at like fear and extreme fear. I just don't get this setup. This setup is one of the most baffling setups that I've ever seen in my life. I've got to be honest. Like, one of the most baffling setups I've ever seen in my life. They're going to be cutting interest rates into an environment which where markets are at all-time highs. Absolutely crazy. But I think that this means that Powell has basically given up to the pressure from Trump. Trump wants lower interest rates. Obviously, the reason why Trump wants lower interest rates is because the US government is now spending 23 cents of every dollar of revenue on interest expense. Because remember that if you look at the debt clock, if you look at the US debt clock, they've got $38 trillion worth of debt. They've got to be funding that $38 trillion worth of debt, the interest on that $38 trillion worth of debt, right? If they've got to be funding it, look at the internet's very slow here, Harris. Like you see how long it takes for a normal page to load here. I'm actually just in the background while we all here. I'm going to just run a speed test that we can understand. Yeah, literally, we're going to run the speed test. We'll leave it running. I won't bore you guys with a speed test. Oh wow, it looks very fast. Holy shit. Can we get some aircon in here? I think it's very hot in here. So 23% of every dollar that they get, they're using on paying interest rates here. They've got to get the interest rates down. That's basically what Trump wants Powell to do. All right, next thing that's happening this week, earnings. As I said, lots of earnings coming out this week. 20% of the S&P reporting results this week. If you look at 𝗙𝗘𝗃 right now, or Polymarket, they're all predicting that earnings are going to be good. So they 82% are predicting that Microsoft will beat earnings, Apple 84%, 79%, 84%. So you can see that right now most people are pretty bullish. Most people are pretty bullish. All right, then lastly this week, in terms of the big macro front, we've got President Xi and President Trump meeting in Korea. Now, I want to talk about this meeting in Korea. So I think you need to remember that the negotiations don't happen between Trump and President Xi. The negotiations happen with delegations that have been and are negotiating in the background. And when the two presidents meet, it's usually just a, what's the word? Like not a gesture, but it's almost like the finalization. So you can rest assured that all the hard negotiations have been and are happening in the background. And all the negotiations have been done in the times when we had all those threats. Oh, we're going to increase tariffs. Oh, you guys hit us with rare earth minerals, blah, blah, blah. Those were the negotiations. And it feels like now they're getting to a point where they're very, very, very close to some kind of peace and some kind of real amicable, long-term, sustainable relationship. So we heard Scott Bessent. I'll play this again for the people that missed it the first time.
Margaret, I think we had a very good two-day meeting. I would believe that so it would be an extra 100% from where we are now. And I believe that is effectively off the table. I'm not going to get ahead of the two leaders who will be meeting in Korea on Thursday, but I can tell you we had a very good 2 days. So I would expect that the threat of the 100% has gone away, as has the threat of the immediate imposition of the Chinese initiating a worldwide export control regime.
So what he's telling you is basically, look, we've come to some kind of agreement. We've come to some kind of conclusion. And now the two presidents are going to go and meet to almost ratify this, to almost sign this. That to me seems very, very, very good, taken in conjunction with the comments that came out of President of Bessent this week. It feels like it's going to be quite a bullish meeting towards the end of the week. So big week. You got FOMC Wednesday. We'll be live for that. Then you've got on Friday, you've got Thursday, Friday, you've got the meeting of President Trump and President Xi. And this is all happening when Bitcoin is at this very, very, very critical level. This is like, for me, it's all fun and games, but if we cannot break this level, then you got to start accepting the fact that, maybe the bull market's over. For now, the sentiment's better out there. I mean, on Twitter, it's so funny how the sentiment happens on Twitter. If it's a good day, then people say not yet, and if it's a bad day, people say, it's the end of the bull market. They don't see, they're so close to the trees, they don't even see the forest. They're just looking at the wood like that. So which direction do I think it's gonna go? So look, what I do know is that it is decision time for Bitcoin. I can tell you that it is decision time for Bitcoin. Now, when I say it is decision time for Bitcoin, what you can see when you look at Bitcoin is that if you look at the Bollinger Bands, The Bollinger Bands are showing you that a big move is imminent. So this is the Bollinger Band width. And when the Bollinger Bands get close together, it means that a move is usually imminent, right? We've showed you this chart a few times. So what you can see, and I'm going to go pretty far back, every time that the Bollinger Bands compress, then a move actually happens. So you can, if you'd like look over here, bang, a move happened up. If you look over here, when the Bollinger Bands compressed over here, there was a move up. If you look over here, there was a move up, right? So right now we're at that level. So a move needs to happen. Now the question is whether this move will be an up move or a down move, right? Because remember that when the Bollinger Bands compress, it can actually mean a down move. In a bull market, it obviously means an up move. In a bear market, it obviously means a down move. So the last couple of times in a bull market where the Bollinger Bands were compressed, we got very, very, very big moves in Bitcoin. And now they're compressed again. So, you know, I kind of guess that there is a move that's imminent. And this move can make or break the bull market. So this tweet over here from Stock Market Lizards, which is one of the accounts that I follow, says, Bitcoin, the calm phase of the cycle, every major Bitcoin rally begins the same way. Volatility contracts before expansion. Right now, the Bollinger Bands are sitting around the 34 EMA are tightening, which is a signal of energy building up in the system. At the same time, the downside momentum is losing steam. We call this the contraction phase. Volatility compresses, emotions cool, and positioning resets before the next directional phase. So now we're going to talk about what direction is the next phase. If it's the end of the bull market, that direction could be down. If it's the other way around, it could be up. I think we're going up for now, right? It feels to me like the momentum is bullish. And I'll show you a couple of things. Like, firstly, when you look at the seasonality of NASDAQ around November and December, usually quite a good month in November and December. You want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because the fund managers, you see that little block where I'm sitting at the bottom there? Yeah. Can we make it bigger so that there's no white border around it? Looks like a bit spaz with the white border around it. Don't you think it looks a bit...
I can bring it to the corner.
Yeah, that'd be nice. And if you make it a bit bigger, it'll also be really good. Yeah. Anyway, so you can see that on the NASDAQ, the seasonality is very, very, very much for bullish. But I don't really like work very much on seasonality. I'm not like the biggest guy, like the biggest fan. I'm like, yeah, seasonality. I look at some other things. The Russell 2000, this is the 2000 smaller shares, if you want to call it that. It's not like the NASDAQ and the Dow Jones, which have the big shares. This is like the 2000 smaller shares, right? Equities. And this is now broken a cup and handle over here, and it's going towards all-time highs. Now, you remember what happened when gold and silver broke that cup and handle? It's a very, very similar pattern, as you can see from November 21. There's the cup, and there is the handle, and that actually broke over here. Now, this signifies a move or an appetite for risk assets. It signifies a move or an appetite for risk assets. And it usually doesn't signify the end of a bull market, but usually there's going to be continuation in the bull market. Now, the last couple of times that the Russell 2000 broke out, you can see that started massive moves in Bitcoin and massive moves in crypto. And so it does feel like that's the beginning of a cycle, not really the end of a cycle, right? So my bet is I still think there's about a 20 to 30% chance, maybe I've reduced this now to 20, that the bull market's over. Because we've got to be cognizant of it. Because every time we say, oh, but this time is different, we realize that maybe this time is not actually, it's actually not that different. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is, and I tweeted about this weekend. And to be honest, the reason why I thought of tweeting about this, actually I want to take you there quickly. Let me quickly go there so you can actually see it. Pump. So Pump had this video. I listen to a lot of podcasts, as you know. And yeah, it's this video over here. It says data shows Bitcoin's going to go so much higher. So I listened to this data point over here, and maybe we can actually play a little bit of it because we do have a bit of time today. I want to play a little bit of it.
Turn to him to understand what's happening in the market. Today we are going to talk about three. All right, Mel, I thought a great place to start the conversation. Gold has been on this historic run, one of the best years in like 40 or 50 years. We now are starting to hear rumblings of a gold to Bitcoin rotation. Do you think it's going to happen or not?
I think it's going to happen. I think it's starting this week. I think in the medium to longer term, let's call it 3 to 6 months, I'm very confident, high level of probability that this is beginning now. Do I think there's always a potential? One more little flush out, shake out some weak hands, a little dip in the Bitcoin price, maybe all the way to the 98 level is possible. If it happens, I think it's 1-2 days back to 108, and then we're on our way to 140, 150 by the end of January. And to flesh out what I see happening here really is people need to just take a step back and really look at where we were just a year ago, right? So a year ago, before the election, the Bitcoin price somewhere in the 50s, okay? And literally in the 3 months after the election, it went up over 50% and gold went up 2%. So it shouldn't be surprising to people that after a move like that, basically from 50s to 108, that we were going to spend some time, consolidating, shaking out weak hands, making sure these price levels make sense. And I think right now we're at a key price level, which is that 108 level. This was that first breakout high that we got to at the end of last year and in January. And so we're just confirming that's where we want to be. Could we do a quick slip? 98 was something we hit.
He talks a lot about the rotation between gold and Bitcoin. And I must say, having listened to that and with my own thesis and with the data that I've got, I really think that there's going to be a rotation from gold to Bitcoin. So gold is, as you know, very, very, very toppy at the moment. We've spoken about this before. I've made a couple of videos about it. Let's quickly go to a gold chart so we can actually just see what gold is doing today. So you see, gold is starting to break down. Now the big question is whether this gold, and Bitcoin is going up. So you got gold breaking down, Bitcoin going up. This could be the beginning of the rotation. He said it's going to start this week. I also think it may actually already have already started. But what we do know is that when gold starts to consolidate, that is when people will go into things like silver. And I think I made this chart in silver. Let me just see if the researchers could just send it to me. I know they were going to make me one, which actually, here we go, which included silver. So we've got to watch this chart and see what happens. It looks like gold and silver on the way down, and now Bitcoin slightly on the way up. We have to monitor this chart because this chart could give us a lot of clues. We could get a situation where we actually start moving up like that. So that's why I think that when you look at the events of this week, so let's really recap this, right? You have a very big week this week. At the same time, the charts are at a very, very critical level. Now, I always say, like, the charts and the fundamentals just justify the charts. Charts are at a very critical level. We need something to push us above this. By the way, it does look like we are moving above this level right now. We need the bulls to win this week. There's a lot of events that could help the bulls win this week. One is the China trade situation. Two is the FOMC meeting. Maybe results could add a little bit of spice to the mix. And that could give us a very, very, very big week, and maybe the continuation of the bull market. At the same time, a big rotation from gold to Bitcoin. Although I don't know that's quite a big macro event as opposed to like it's just something that happens for 1 week. We have to monitor it on a multi-week basis. All right, let's talk a little bit about altcoins because there have been some good moves in altcoins this week. I want to talk about some of the moves in the altcoins this week. Zcash, one that I'm still buying, actually, to be honest. I'll show you in a second why I'm actually still buying it. Virtual up 79% this week. We'll talk about that. Pump Fund up 17% this week. We'll talk about that too. Ribbit or Tibber up $400 million market cap. Merlin Chain, which is something that we called in front runners a long time ago, did well. FF, which we've also called in front runners, also doing very, very, very well. Let's talk about the altcoins. But before we talk about the altcoins, I do want to remind you guys of a little of something that I spoke about yesterday. How many of you want to go onto a hardware wallet or have been threatening to take your coins off exchanges, but actually haven't taken your coins off exchanges yet, right? I know that before I moved my coins off exchanges, like my coins were always sitting on exchanges, and actually only once, I think it was Bitfinex that was hacked, one of the big exchanges that was hacked. Then I was like, oh shit, I better get my coins off exchanges. And then I quickly went and ordered a Ledger or whatever wallet was available then. Guys, I really think that if you're in crypto and you want to be your own bank, you have to be storing your own keys on a cold wallet. Now the problem with a cold wallet is the bloody seed phrase. Because you'll lose your seed phrase and you won't remember your seed phrase, blah, blah, blah. And it's like such a bad experience. But there is a new wallet out there It's called Tangem Wallet. It's basically this card. That card is instead of your seed phrase, right? That is effectively the wallet. It can either come like that, or it comes in this ring, which I love. The ring is like the Aura ring, basically, and that is actually a wallet. Now, there is a link below here. There is a link. If you guys want to get like the best deal, there is a link. Oh, there we go. So there's a link below. If you guys want to get great deals on these wallets, you get 10% off plus $5 of BTC on the wallet, plus 25% off the ring if you buy it. And these wallets are actually quite they're cheap, like relative to they're quite cheap, these wallets. So like a 3-card wallet is $62, a 2-card wallet is $49. So yeah. So that's the wallet. $62, you get a 3-card set. 2-card set, $49. I mean, that's so cheap to protect your wallet. They ship anywhere in the world. But for me, the best one is the ring. Like, you wear the ring and it's like, it looks like a normal ring and an Aura ring, and basically it doesn't have your private keys or whatever else. Guys, if you wanna go out and buy them, there's a link below. I think it ends at the end of October, which is in like 2 days. So 31st of October. So act fast if you actually want to do it. Anyway, let's carry on with the altcoins. So I did mention to you we're going to carry on with the altcoins. So I mentioned to you that a lot of altcoins have actually been moving this week. I want to talk specifically around one coin and two narratives that actually have been moving a lot this week. So the coin that has been moving a lot this week is Zcash, and I think we need to spend some time on Zcash because, as I tweeted on the weekend, Zcash reminds me very much of like the old days on Bitcoin, right? Where you're getting these like massive moves that are happening on the market in this coin, and this coin is very, very, very similar to Bitcoin. Now, let's quickly talk about why people are comparing Zcash to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is, as you know, a proof of work coin where there's no pre-mine, there's no tokens that are minted by outside parties. It is all done on a proof of work mechanism where these computers have to solve a fancy algorithm, and that every time that they mine a block, there's a reward actually issued. Now, Zcash works exactly the same way. The difference between Zcash and Bitcoin is that Zcash allows for what they call shielded or private transactions, right? So imagine that Bitcoin is a store of value, and then imagine that Zcash is private or shielded transactions, which means that you can almost think of Zcash like money. And the reason is, in terms of a store of value, or in terms of gold, it's okay for people to know who's storing value, which addresses are storing value. It's probably quite important for that to happen. Like, you think about the ETFs and you're thinking about like central banks and whatever storing, you kind of want to know which addresses have got, are spending. The problem is when you're spending money, you want privacy. When you're investing in products, you want privacy, right? And privacy is a right. And that's what Zcash actually solves. And it solves it in a very, very, very similar way that Bitcoin solves it, right? Both of them are proof of work coins. So they're not like, these founder-led coins where there's a foundation and the foundation has tokens. These are both proof of work coins. One doesn't allow for privacy, but Bitcoin gives you no privacy. And Zcash gives you what they call private or shielded transactions, right? And from a structural point of view, they're very, very, very much the same. Now, here's why I think it gets interesting. If you think, that's by the way, the weekly candle that has been put in on Zcash. Why? Because a lot of people have woken up to privacy, right? 𝗙𝗏𝗪𝗏 came out and he pretty much said something like, I wish I had that tweet. Researchers, if you could send me Naval's tweet, but he almost said something like, Zcash is your insurance against Bitcoin or insurance against the state or something like that. Because we're living in an era where the president is very pro-crypto and they're actually quite open to privacy. They understand that the only way that blockchain is going to work is with privacy. And so the most logical privacy play is Zcash. Now, Zcash is a coin that's been out for a long, long, long time. In fact, I think it was around in like 2017 or 2018 because I remember it back then. It was being built. It was built by a guy called 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪. And you can see that that the two coins are very, very, very similar in many ways. So Zcash also has this thing called optional privacy. So it uses ZK technology to shield addresses and amounts, which is exactly what you need when you're dealing with private transactions. So why am I interested in this coin? And I'll do much more. It says, so this is the Naval tweet. It says, Bitcoin is insurance against fiat. Zcash is insurance against Bitcoin. So why am I excited about this? And why am I buying it? Because I remember the days when Bitcoin was trading at $200, $300, $400, $500, $600. And then people kept saying, well, Bitcoin's too expensive, or Bitcoin's too... Now, look at Bitcoin today. Bitcoin's at $120,000, right? And so the thing is, you got to ask yourself, if Zcash catches on as private money, and Bitcoin becomes a store of value, and Zcash becomes a private money or a private store of value, you got to ask yourself, what relative valuation to Bitcoin would it have? So ask yourself a question like, is 10% of... It's the same Bitcoin algorithm, it's proof of work mining, etc., etc. The question you got to ask yourself is, if it does catch on, then is 10% of Bitcoin's market share justified in private money? And I think the answer could be yes. And that's why when people talk about Zcash being expensive at $300, I remember people saying Zcash was expensive, Bitcoin was expensive at $250. It wasn't, in hindsight, right? And so I think you've got to put some money on Zcash just in case this thing takes off. Because if it does, then whether you bought it at 200, 300, 400, if it gets to 10% of Bitcoin's value, or even 5% of Bitcoin's value, you're talking about a 5x or 10x a move in the price. And that's why I'm not really paying much attention to these short-term moves. Yes, it's moved a lot and it'll probably slow down, but there's a big impetus now on building momentum for Zcash. There was a tweet here that I wanted to read to you guys. I wonder if I actually kept it. Let's have a look at it. Imagine Bitcoin, but it's encrypted using the most advanced privacy technology in the world, built by expert cryptographers. It makes major continual progress week after week, actually improving and changing. That's Zcash. It's like a wet dream for the old Bitcoin talk days. And that's exactly what Zcash is becoming. And a lot of OGs in Bitcoin are now saying, okay, we've got Bitcoin approved, we've got Bitcoin over the line. Now the next narrative we all need to work on is privacy. And so I think that this is a massive narrative that you have to pay attention to. And even though it does feel a bit expensive now, and it'll probably go back, I've been buying. Actually, I don't know if you remember, I made this video 2 weeks ago where I told you guys to buy Zcash. And I think Zcash was at 150, so I think we doubled our money, or just over doubled our money. By the way, yesterday I still bought more Zcash at $330 because I just think, you know what, my worst case is that I'm wrong and it goes back down to 200. But if I'm right here and this thing does go to $10,000 or 10% of Bitcoin's value, then it could be very, very, very high. The next thing that we have to talk about, and I'm not going to talk about it today, is base, November being base month, which we'll talk about tomorrow, because I'm speaking to base this afternoon, and this whole agentic framework, which they've just launched, because this actually changes everything. So Coinbase launched this new protocol, which is called X402. And what X402 allows is it allows AI agents to start transacting using crypto. That's pretty much what this thing actually does. Now, why is it such a big breakthrough? Because it really adds a new use case to crypto. If you ever thought about like AI agents that need to transact, because AI agents that can't transact are just like social media AI agents. But we're about to get into the economy with most of the transactions are going to take place on AI agents. Now, AI agents can't use a credit card. They're not going to like sign up to a credit card into their postcode. It doesn't work like that. What AI agents are going to do is they're going to need a standard. And there's a lot of standards actually being launched. Now, Coinbase launched a standard called X402, which is a very, very, very simple way for agents to transact on the web amongst each other. So stuff like if you watch an ad, the ad website can be paid almost immediately for you watching the ad, as opposed to having to reconcile in the backend. Two AI agents transacting, they're going to need some kind of protocol. That's this X402 narrative. Now, why is it such a powerful narrative? Because it's going to bring new life into AI agents. Remember all the AI agents that were launched last year on virtuals? Well, imagine those guys can now all of a sudden transact. And now you know why virtuals is starting to climb. And anything that is AI agent related is also going to start climbing, because there's now a protocol or a standard for AI agents to transact across blockchains. And it was launched by Coinbase. So we'll spend a lot of time on that. I'm having a call with Base just after the show today. I'll feed back to you guys tomorrow. Remember that later on this month, Base launches the Base app to 25 million users. And when they do, that's going to drive up a whole lot of things. So that's why I posted in Frontrunners I actually posted the other day and I said, look, let's just start buying some of the base protocol apps. Let's start buying things. I'm trying to look if I can find that post for you. Let me just find that for you. Here we go. Basically, in front runners, I actually posted this weekend. I said, okay, I showed the guys I bought some Falcon Finance. I said, so guys, keep your eyes on the base ecosystem. It's starting to run. The reason is that the base app goes live to 25 million people in November. Plus, you've got this X402. Main beneficiaries, obviously, Aerodrome. That's the biggest, like, no-brainer. Then you got Zora, because you know that Zora is about creators, and Coinbase are very, very, very much about creators. And then virtuals, it has already run. Be careful. Morpho. So we've got to start looking for base beta plays. I'm speaking to base today. And then once I speak to base, I'll actually come back to you guys with a with a much bigger list. Okay, lastly, before we go. So on Friday, I had one of my biggest trading days ever. How did I have such a big trading day? Remember on Friday, the news came out that Trump had pardoned CZ. And then when that happened, Asta and BNB actually bounced down. The reason why I managed to catch that trade was because I had the news terminal live with me. So I don't know if you guys remember the news terminal. I haven't spoken about it for a while, but because I had such a big trading day on Friday on this news terminal, I want to just show you like what actually happened. Just give me a second. I'm just opening the news terminal. So the news terminal, effectively how it works is there's an AI agent in the back end, and the AI agent is basically looking to see which accounts are powerful when they post on Truth Social, on Discord, on a whole lot of other platforms, right? And when those accounts actually tweet, like Elon's a powerful account, then within a matter of milliseconds, like in this case, 938 milliseconds. Okay, there's Morphos, obviously, and there we go. There's more. Every time news basically breaks, it tells you who's the source of the news, and it automatically gives you the option to trade. So for example, if I like this news, I just go like that, and there, bang, I'm long. Now, I don't have money in this account, but basically, because it's a demo account, so you can see that you can trade in and you can trade out in one step. Now, how did I make the money? Well, when the CZ news came out, that happened, and I got it within a number of milliseconds, and I was able to press the buy button several times before, and I ended up making a couple of $1 million. This is one of the most powerful trading tools that I've ever used. It's called the 247 terminal. We're running a special on the 247 terminal, which is exclusive to us and exclusive to you guys. Here's how it works. If you sign up now, you get, and you use the promo code 𝗙𝗘𝗏, you'll pay $49 a month for the first 3 months. And then afterwards, if you want to carry on, it's $199 a month. Trust me that it is the most powerful trading tool that you guys will ever get. Okay, it's really one of the I mean, there's just news coming out all the time, and you can trade very, 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 very fast. So there's a special. Go and get the special. That special ends end of October. Look how much news is coming out. Okay, more news coming out. More news coming out. More news coming out. Bang, 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 bang. All right, chaps. Oh, there we go. This becomes very, 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 very addictive. All right, chaps. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.